The glass shattered. Not loudly. Just enough for the sound to slice through the silence of the building an empire, of crushing men twice his size, of owning skylines and silencing rooms with a single look, and all of it had just been undone by a piece of copper worth nothing. He pressed his palm flat against the wall, steadying himself. Sleep had been impossible for years. Control was the only thing that kept the panic at bay. That was why he had fired everyone. Chefs who breathed too loudly, assistants who lingered, housekeepers who tried to make conversation. He wanted silence, order, emptiness, someone invisible. That was how Mara Jennings had been recommended. She's perfect, his aide Colin Reese had said. 15 years of experience. No drama. Keeps her head down. Honestly, sir, you won't even know she's there. Lucien had approved her without looking at the file. Now he wished he had burned it. That night, Lucien didn't sleep. He lay in his massive bed, staring at the ceiling, the image of the copper ring burned behind his eyes. At 3:14 a.m., he got up and walked barefoot to the security room. He told himself he was just checking procedures. The cameras flickered to life. He fast-forwarded through hours of empty hallways until he found her in the kitchen. Early morning light spilling across the counter. Mara moved efficiently. No guastid motion. No humming. No phone. Just work. Then she reached for a cup. The camera zoomed slightly as Lucien leaned closer. The ring. Same bend. Same blue glass chipped at the edge. His stomach twisted. That's impossible, he muttered. Lucien spent the next 3 days watching her in fragments. Not obsessively. He refused to call it that. Just observantly. She never removed the ring. Not while cleaning. Not while washing dishes. Not even while scrubbing the marble floors on her knees. By the 8th night, something worse happened. Lucien slept. Deeply. No pills. No alcohol. No nightmares. He woke just before dawn, disoriented. His chest rising and falling in a way it hadn't in years. He sat up slowly. Someone was in the apartment. Panic surged, but then he recognized the sound. Soft footsteps. A distant drawer closing. Mara. For reasons he couldn't explain, the knowledge settled him instead of alarming him. That morning, Lucien set his first test. He left a blue glass bottle on the kitchen counter. Not decorative. Cracked at the base. Old. He watched from the hallway. Mara entered. Froze for half a second. Then continued as if nothing were wrong. But her hand brushed the bottle. Just once. Later that evening, he changed the morning alarm on the house system. A hymn. Slow. Off-key. The same one that used to play every winter at the orphanage when the heat failed and the children huddled together under thin blankets. The sound drifted through the penthouse at 6 a.m. Lucien didn't move. Neither did Mara. She stood perfectly still in the hallway, eyes closed, lips pressed tight. When the song ended, she exhaled shakily and went back to work. Lucien closed his eyes. There was no more doubt. Her name had been Lena back then. Lena who shared her bread. Lena who patched his bleeding hand with a torn strip of cloth when he'd cursed under his breath. Furious that the ring wasn't perfect. Stop, she'd said softly. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to mean something. I'll take care of you, he'd promised, holding the ring out with shaking fingers. When I get rich, I swear. She had smiled like she believed him. Lucien had left without a goodbye. And now she was here. In his home, scrubbing his floors. He should have spoken to her. He didn't. Instead, he watched, and waited, and let the distance between them stretch tighter with every silent day. Lucien Crowe had negotiated hostile takeovers without breaking a sweat. He had stared down senators, crushed competitors twice his size, and signed deals that ruined families he would never meet. Yet every morning, when Mara Jennings passed him in the hallway and lowered her eyes, he felt like a cowardly boy again. "Good morning, sir," she said once quietly, because he had spoken first. Her voice hit him harder than he expected. It was older now, steadier, but the softness was the same. "Morning," Lucien replied, then immediately regretted it because his throat tightened and the word came out rough. She nodded and moved on. That was how it went. Days passed in careful silence. Mara did her work with precision. Lucien pretended not to notice the way she left his coffee exactly how he liked it, even though he had never told her. Or how she adjusted the thermostat at night, just enough that the apartment didn't feel like a tomb. He stopped sleeping with the lights on. That terrified him. On the 5th evening, Colin Reese called. "You've been unusually quiet," Colin said cautiously. "Everything all right?" Lucien stood by the window, city lights glittering below. "Why did you hire her?" A pause. "Mara? You approved her, sir."
No.
"I mean, where did you find her?" "She came through a private domestic agency in Baltimore." "Why?" "Baltimore." Lucien's grip tightened on the phone. "How long has she been registered there?" "About 5 years," Colin replied. "Sir, is something wrong?" Lucien ended the call. 5 years. That meant he had known where she was. The truth settled like a stone in his chest. That night, Lucien pushed the test further. He left a framed photograph on his desk. Faded, crooked. A group of children standing in front of a brick building with broken windows. Riverside Home for Youth, barely legible at the bottom. He didn't hide it. Mara entered to dust the office. Lucien watched from the security monitor, heart hammering. She saw the photo. Her breath hitched. Just once. Her fingers hovered over the frame, trembling. "Don't," she whispered to herself. She straightened the frame carefully. Then she turned away, her shoulders rigid, jaw clenched like she was holding something back. Lucien slammed his fist against the desk. That night, he stood in the hallway as Mara finished her shift. "Mara." She stopped. "Yes, sir?" He turned toward her fully for the first time. Really looked at her. Same eyes. Older. Tired. Guarded. "Do you need anything?" she asked, professional, distant. 1,000 words crowded his mouth. His voice failed him.
No.
"That's all." She nodded and walked past him. Lucien stayed there long after she was gone. The invitation to the Blackwell Foundation Charity Gala arrived the next morning. Elite donors. Media presence. Rivals in attendance. Lucien almost canceled. Then he saw the staffing list. "We're short," Colin said. "Your regular event team is unavailable." Lucien hesitated. "Mara can assist." Colin blinked. "Sir, she's a housekeeper." "She's competent," Lucien said sharply. "That's all that matters." The night of the gala, the penthouse transformed. Music, laughter, expensive perfume. People who spoke too loudly and smiled too easily. Mara moved through the crowd in a simple black dress, carrying trays of champagne. She kept her head down. The ring was visible. Lucien watched from across the room, unease twisting his gut. Then Marian Whitlock noticed. Marianne, blonde, sharp-tongued, heir to an old money fortune and Lucien's most persistent business rival. Tilted her head, eyes narrowing. She intercepted Mara near the bar. "What's this?" Marianne said loudly, taking Mara's hand without permission. Mara stiffened. "Please don't." "Is that copper?" Marianne laughed. "How quaint." Guests turned. Lucien's blood ran cold. "Give it back," Mara said, her voice steady but low. Marianne tugged the ring off her finger. "You wear trash like this at a Blackwell gala?" The ring slipped from her fingers and clinked against the marble floor. Silence exploded. Lucien moved before he could think. He crossed the room in long strides, dropped to one knee, and picked up the ring. His hands were shaking. "This," he said, standing slowly, holding it up, "is worth more than every diamond in this room." Marian scoffed. "Lucien, don't be ridiculous." He turned to her, eyes blazing. "Get out." The room gasped. "I'm serious," Lucien said. "Leave. Now." Marianne's face flushed with humiliation. She stormed out. Lucien turned toward Mara. She stood frozen, hands clenched, eyes shining. But she didn't look relieved. She looked resolved. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She nodded once. "Yes, sir." Then she took the tray from a nearby table and walked away. The party ended early. The next morning, Mara was gone. Her room was empty, clean, impersonal. On Lucien's desk lay a single envelope. He opened it with trembling fingers. Lucien, I didn't come looking for you. I didn't want answers or money or apologies. I wanted to know if the boy who once stood between me and the world still existed. Last night I saw him, but I can't stay. I won't live my life waiting for courage that comes too late. The ring was never a promise of the future. It was proof that once I was loved. Please don't look for me. Lucien sank into his chair. For the first time in decades, the silence crushed him. Lucien read the letter until the words blurred, then read it again, slower, as if he could change the meaning by force of will. She hadn't accused him. That was the worst part. No anger, no demands, no bitterness, just truth. He folded the letter carefully, placed it back on the desk, then stood and swept everything off with one violent motion. Papers scattered. A lamp crashed to the floor. Coward, he said aloud, the word tasting like rust. For 2 days, Lucien didn't leave the penthouse. He ignored calls, canceled meetings, let deals stall. The city kept moving without him, and for the first time he felt how small he was without the noise. On the third night, he opened a locked drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside was an old address. Baltimore. He had known. 5 years ago, a routine background check had flagged a domestic worker named Jennings registered in the same city as Riverside Homes' remains. He had closed the file, told himself it was coincidence, told himself it was mercy. It was fear. Lucien packed a single bag. The drive felt longer than it should have. Every mile stripped something from him. Titles, money, defenses, until he was just a man gripping the steering wheel too tightly. He found the building at dusk. A narrow brick apartment complex with peeling paint and flickering lights. Ordinary. Humble. She deserved better. Lucien stood across the street for almost an hour before crossing. He knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Mara looked at him calmly, as if she'd been expecting him. You came anyway, she said. Yes. That wasn't what I asked. I know. She studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. You have 5 minutes. The apartment was small but warm. Plants by the window. Books stacked neatly. Life. Lucien stood awkwardly near the door. I should have come sooner. You should have come when it mattered. I was afraid. She let out a quiet, humorless laugh. You always were. He nodded. I thought if I stayed away, I wouldn't hurt you. You hurt me anyway, she said gently, just from a distance. Silence stretched between them. I didn't come to apologize, Lucien said finally. Not only. I came to tell you the truth. She crossed her arms. I already know it. I was scared of being poor again, he said. Scared of being nobody. And I convinced myself that leaving was the brave thing. And now I know it wasn't bravery. It was survival dressed up as choice. Mara's expression softened, just slightly. Lucien reached into his coat and pulled out a small coil of copper wire and a pair of pliers. Her breath caught. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said quietly. I'm not asking for the past. I just don't want to be the man who keeps running. He held out the wire. Let me make a new ring. Not a promise. A choice. Mara looked at the wire, then at him. You remember why the first one mattered? She asked. Yes. No, she said softly. You remember making it. You don't remember why I kept it. She sat on the couch, motioned for him to do the same. When you cut your hand, she said, you didn't cry. You didn't even swear. You just kept twisting the wire, bleeding all over it. Lucien swallowed. I wrapped your hand, she continued, because you didn't think you deserved help. That ring wasn't about marriage. It was about someone finally letting me take care of them. Tears burned his eyes. I don't need promises, Lucien, Mara said. I need presence. Choice. Every day. He nodded, voice breaking. I can do that. I will do that. She studied him for a long moment, then stood. You can stay, she said. Tonight. Hope surged, but she held up a hand. That doesn't mean tomorrow. she added. We'll see who you are when it's harder. Lucien exhaled, shaky but grateful. That's fair. Lucien did not sleep that night. Not because of fear, because for the first time in years, his mind refused to run ahead of him. He sat on the edge of the couch while Mara lay in her room, the door half closed, a quiet boundary neither of them crossed. The apartment hummed with ordinary sounds. Pipes ticking, a car passing outside, a neighbor laughing somewhere down the hall. Ordinary felt unfamiliar. At dawn, Mara emerged dressed for work, hair pulled back, copper ring still on her finger. She paused when she saw him still sitting there. You didn't leave, she said. I said I wouldn't. She nodded once. Coffee? Yes. He answered too quickly, then caught himself. I mean, if that's okay. She almost smiled. They drank in silence. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't comfortable either. It was honest. I'm not moving back, Mara said eventually. I know. And I'm not quitting my job. I wouldn't ask you to. She studied him. You don't get to rescue me. I don't want to, Lucien replied. I want to stand next to you. That earned him a longer look. Days turned into weeks. Lucien rented a small place nearby instead of returning to his penthouse. He commuted, missed meetings, let his board complain. For the first time, he chose to disappoint powerful people instead of the one person who mattered. Mara watched carefully. When stress hit, when his phone buzzed endlessly, when he was tempted to disappear into work again. She noticed. And when he stayed anyway, she noticed that too. One evening, Lucien pulled the copper wire from his pocket again. May I? He asked. Mara extended her hand. He worked slowly this time. No rusing. No blood. The new ring wasn't perfect. It leaned slightly to the left, the glass uneven. She slipped it on her other hand. 2 rings now. One worn smooth by survival. One rough with intention. Months later, Mara visited the penthouse again. She brought plants, books, warm light. Lucien let the staff return, carefully, intentionally. Control loosened its grip. One night, as they laughed over a badly cooked meal, Lucien caught himself mid-thought. He was happy, not powerful, not untouchable, present. Mara noticed his expression. What? I spent my life thinking worth came from what I built, he said quietly. Turns out it came from what I was afraid to lose. She reached for his hand. You're still trying. I always will. She smiled. Fully this time. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you of a promise you made, or one you were afraid to keep, don't scroll past it. Like the video. Subscribe for more stories that cut deep and heal slow. And tell us in the comments. Who are you choosing not to run from anymore? Some promises survive poverty. Others survive fear. But the ones worth keeping are the ones we choose every day.